Hi there, it's Ashley. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm glad that you stopped by for a visit. I created this channel in honor of my dad, who believed that our job as human beings was to simply love each other, accept each other, and try to make a difference every day in some small way for those people who we encounter. That we should lift each other up and try to spread smiles wherever we go. My dad had a really cool way of teaching me how to do this, and it started with changing the way that I thought about myself and my life by reprogramming my mind to be successful. Dad said that when life and all of the negative, terrible things that come with it get into our minds, we need to find a way to change that, to reprogram our thinking patterns. Then we could help others do the same thing. The way my dad did this was when he taught me that there is a specific secret to successful thinking. It is so simple in theory, yet so incredibly difficult to do once we're adults. And that secret is believing like a child believes. He first taught me this when I was 7 years old. At the time, Dad was the manager of a department store. One night when he came home from work, he walked in with a stuffed toy bear attached to his arm and a look of excitement on his face. He said, "Oh, you'll never guess what happened. When I was closing the store for the night, I walked through the toy department and this bear jumped off of the shelf and hugged my arm and he wouldn't let go." Dad said, I asked the bear who he was and he said that his name was Huggy Bear and that he wanted to meet Ashley. I could not contain my excitement. It was so neat. Dad leaned over to Huggy Bear and acted like he was listening to him. And then he said, "Oh, he wants to hug your arm now." Oh my gosh, it was so amazing. So Dad put Huggy Bear on my arm and I was just in heaven. It was absolutely marvelous. It was a moment before life had changed my thinking patterns, when I could genuinely believe in something that was amazingly awesome. That childlike belief helped me to get through so many difficult times in life and accept the possibility that impossible things could happen by reprogramming my mind. Dad used the example of that night to remind me over the years of how I felt in that moment when I was 7 years old, to remind me of that childlike trust I had when I believed with all of my heart that this teddy bear was real and that we could talk with each other and that it seemed perfectly reasonable and normal. Dad would say, "Remember, Huggy Bear? Remember how you believed without question that it was all real? You need to find that childlike belief again. It was there when you were a kid and it's still there now. It's just buried in all of the junk that the world put on you." Dad talked a lot about how the things people say and the things that happen to us in life start to destroy our ability to believe and to be childlike, that we can no longer trust in the possibility of the impossible. Being childlike and believing for something is simply not doubting or questioning it. You don't need an explanation for it. You just accept the possibility that it can be, or that it already is. Like when you ask little kids what they want to be when they grow up, and they say an astronaut, or the president, or Venus Williams. Accept the possibility of greatness in you. Then you can eventually believe in that greatness, and you can do wonderful things. Accepting the possibility is easier than believing if life has beaten you down. I certainly know that. I had to do that numerous times over the years. For example, I had no idea how I was going to survive being a caregiver for my parents. But because I couldn't leave them, I had to figure it out. So I accepted the possibility that I could not only survive it, but that I could do the best job possible for my parents. You know, believing in anything costs you something. It isn't easy. It takes time and energy to believe. And the worse things are, the more time and energy it takes. But eventually, if you don't give up, it will be worth it. Dad proved to me that anyone, regardless of what kind of childhood they had, could have that trusting belief that anything was possible. Anyone can reprogram their mind and thus have a successful life by having that childlike belief that things can get better. When my dad was enduring Parkinson's disease and leukemia, I asked him how he didn't ever give up and how he managed to get up again every day in the midst of the health battle. I mean, I knew he loved God tremendously, but even with that, I couldn't see how he did this. He told me that it was like my belief in Huggy Bear, believing like a child does. So my next question was, how do you do that? Believe like a child, considering your childhood. My dad endured a horrible childhood, violence and no love. How could he believe like a child with that as his example? But Dad said, even when no one would help them, remember that this was in the late 1940s, early 1950s. He knew that this can't be it. This can't be the way life will always be. It has to be possible that something out there can be better. He said that honestly, things were so bad that he had to believe that there was something better in order to survive. He reprogrammed his mind. And I know that he believed and still believes that everyone, all of you, no matter who you are or where you are or what you've been through, have the ability to believe like a child, to know that life can get better. After the deaths of both of my parents, I still remind myself of this today. It's why I still have Huggy Bear. I try to remind myself to accept the possibility that things can get better when I'm having a terrible day. I remind myself of times in my life when I didn't think I would make it through, but I did, along with some other things that I do, which are available for you in a free PDF and a link in the description. Having the ability to believe doesn't just make believing happen. Believing is something we choose to do, especially when life has disappointed us and overwhelmed us and discouraged us. Believe that you can do anything, as my dad taught me. Even if it doesn't ever happen, that belief that it can get you through the mess. One of the things my dad did to reinforce this was to never let society dictate what I did with my life. He said that I could do anything and be anything. He gave me Barbie dolls and G.I. Joe dolls when I was little. He never made one more important than the other. He said that he didn't think women should be trapped like his mom was, simply because she was a woman. When he would play with me and I wanted to use the Barbie and Ken dolls with the Barbie Dream House and the Barbie Corvette, Dad would ask me, "Who paid for all of these things?" And I would yell, "Barbie!" And Dad would say, "That's right." He taught me that Barbie would go out and work, and if she wanted to do that, and if Ken wanted to stay home and take care of Skipper and the house, he could. The traditional gender roles were not something that I had to follow, that I was not society's expectations, and neither are you. My grandmother left my grandfather at one point and even got divorced to try and get her and my dad and his siblings away from the abuse. She had a full-time job, but in that era, it just wasn't enough to survive on with 3 kids. So she had to go back. Dad said that he never wanted me to be trapped like that no one should ever be trapped because his mom being trapped in an abusive marriage thus trapped him and his siblings too. He always believed that there was something better even when he was trapped as a child. He said that he was trapped physically, but never mentally. He said that was something that happens to all of us throughout our lives. We get trapped mentally, trapped in wrong beliefs, and in thinking we can't do something, and in thinking that we will never amount to anything, that we don't deserve anything good. We take our circumstances, the words that are spoken over us, and we own all of it. And that traps us in wrong thinking patterns and in being unsuccessful in life. We were all children once. Like my dad, whether our childhoods were a horror show or whether they were wonderful, we can choose to believe that something is better out there like he did. I've learned from my dad that even when I don't see a way out and the darkness is overwhelming me, just the belief that someday, somehow, things could turn around can be enough to stay and hang on for another few hours, another few days, another few months. It's part of the Carpe Diem message that my dad taught my mom and I years ago, in which I explain in detail in my last video, and that I'll link at the end of this video. You can survive and get through the health battle, the legal fight, the financial war. This time in your life isn't wasted. Choose to believe that. My dad was a Christian and also the most loving, accepting, non-judgmental person I will ever know. He wasn't religious. His favorite Bible verse was Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. If you're not a Christian, if you don't have any spiritual beliefs, if you're an atheist, you can still strengthen yourself by remembering all that you've already been through and survived. Everyone has been through something. You're still here. You got through that. You'll get through this mess too. You can have a great life through successful thinking if you reprogram your mind. Please know that I am cheering you on, and I know that my dad is too. My dad always said, you can never say I love you enough. Know that I love you all, whoever you are and wherever you are, whatever you believe or don't believe. I just hope that you'll try believing like a child again and change the way you think. Change your thinking patterns and reprogram your mind. It could change your life. It could get you through to the other side of the mess until you can stand up again. And I also know that my dad loves you all too. I hope that this message has been useful to you today. As my favorite quote reads by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, What is my life if I am no longer useful to others? If you have any suggestions or anything that you'd like to hear about, please leave me a comment. I'd appreciate it. And remember that no matter how difficult life gets, we all can get through it together. And remember that you are enough. Thank you for being you. And thank you for visiting. I hope to see you again very soon. Remember to try and spread smiles wherever you go. And carpe diem.